Welcome to the Warband, a World of Warcraft podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Swaglock, and with me, as always, is Chicken. Dude, Chicken, how are you doing?
Ooh, pew, pew, pew. Fireworks go off as they introduce the best host to the podcast. Hey, what's going on?
Just a note, by the way, for everybody listeing at home
No,
or
don't
in their
do it.
cars.
Don't do it. No one will notice. No, it's okay.
Dude.
No.
They'll know, dude. They'll know. We got to just let them know. Let them know. Chicken has had to hide away in another room to find a quiet spot to record the podcast tonight. His home's a little overrun with guests. Not going to name names. So because of that, he's using a different mic and a different setup. So if it sounds a little different, that's why. We'll be back to the norm next week.
Yeah, sorry.
Is
it really that bad?
I'm going to make you sound so good in post. Don't even worry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's going to be beautiful. The best you've ever sounded.
I'll enjoy listening to it later this week.
Perfect. But also today, this is episode 30 for us, which means it is one of our 5th episodes where we like to bring on a guest onto the podcast. And this week's guest is a streamer I have really enjoyed watching a bunch lately. But they're not just a Twitch streamer. They also are a cutting-edge Mythic Raider. They're a healer. They even assist their raid team with leading in decision-making for their healing squad. So it is really cool to have them on the podcast today to bring their wisdom, to bring their insight, and most of all, their opinions. I want to say thank you, Oreo, for joining us today.
Yay, thank you. You make me sound so impressive.
Of course. Now, you also go by Mothravita on like Twitch and your other social channels as well, correct?
That is right.
Are you a big Mothra fan? I never asked.
I love Mothra. She is my favorite kaiju.
That makes sense. I always thought there was a connection there, but I've never actually like asked about it, so I figured I had to. Were you excited to at least see a like Godzilla reference in the current raid?
Yeah, I'm always excited by Godzilla kind of references. And if it has Mothra in the movie, I'll go see it.
Perfect. So, Blizzard, we know you listen to the podcast because you made tanks good again. If you're listening today, if you're still designing that next raid, maybe, a Mothra boss, please. You can make it happen. Pull some
That'd be cool.
It would be very cool. So we're just going to kind of dive into things. Feel free to chime in and jump in on anything that you're interested in talking about. But to ask you a couple questions so our viewers can know a little bit more about your experience and how you enjoy the game. You guys are currently raiding Mythic right now. You've pushed Cutting Edge in the past. Successfully, let me clarify. Successfully pushed for Cutting Edge many times in the past. How are you? How's your team enjoying raid? Kind of post Race to World First. I know tuning's always kind of weird for those first couple weeks, but now that we're into it a little bit, how are things feeling?
They're feeling pretty good. It varies tier to tier with kind of boss difficulty and like boss design. Like, raids can be hit or misses, and It really goes down to the fights. But Liberation of Undermine's been really fun so far.
Oh my gosh, the vibes. I
love the vibes.
Yeah, even if the bosses weren't good, which I think there actually are a bunch of great bosses this season, but even if they weren't good, like I don't know, man. I love I think my problem is last expansion. It was like Fire Cave, Fire Laboratory, Fire Conservatory, right? Like it was kind of just all fire. And so now we had like Shadow Spiders, and then now it's like Casino, Goblin-y kind of vibes. I don't know. I have high hopes for season 3. I worry that they can't keep up with it, but I'm gonna enjoy what we have now. And did you say what boss you guys are currently working on? I might have missed that while sipping water.
We're working on Lock and Stock right now. We got Styx down.
Ooh.
Gosh, what day is it? Last week?
Okay, yeah. Wow.
And hot take me, like Styx might be one of my like favorite fights that I've seen in Mythic Raid in a long time. Yeah. So that's a big deal because this is kind of a running joke between me and my healers that we focus on health bars for the majority of fights. So we like to joke that there might even be raid bosses in here for all we know.
That is true.
Yeah. So I come from that perspective, but so a special fight that actually stands out to me, Styx was super fun.
No, I find, and I don't know, because I know they nerfed him a bunch after Race to World First, but he was arguably one of, if not the hardest bosses in the Race to World First, right? So I'm assuming not quite that same difficulty now. But I know for myself, the bosses that are sometimes the trickiest to overcome, right, as you're progging, are oftentimes some of my favorite bosses, because like the just the experience of being able to like learn as a group and overcome fights as a group is cool. Like that's exciting. And granted, that's from the perspective of a tank. As a healer, what do you find like makes a fight more or less fun from like a healer perspective? Because you kind of made that comment about watching raid frames the whole time, which is very true.
Like I always love when fights have unique mechanics, which it's such a hard thing to ask for from like a game development standpoint. Come up with something brand new that we've never seen before. Like every single raid boss, it's impossible. But when they introduce kind of new mechanics like the ball rolling on sticks, you know, that it stands out. And arguably that might be something that some healers don't like, because if you care a lot about parses and things like that, if you never get a ball rolling mechanic on that fight, your parse is going to be a lot higher than somebody who gets it 2 or 3 times. But the mechanic was just so fun that I like doing it. So
yeah, it was definitely one of those mechanics where I think if it wasn't done well, we just got him down on heroic this week, so nice. Not quite mythic, but even still. But we had
same mechanic.
I think we had like a 30-person group that we got him down on, which admittedly gets a little painful with the trash piles when the flame circles start going out, because there's not a lot of space to spread. And so the
30-man group is harder to manage than a 20-man.
Yeah, I remember the last or the third tier of Dragonflight. I can't remember the boss's name. The Ragnaros replacement guy. I forget his name. But I think we end up cutting our raid team in half and doing like a pool where we downed him with half the team and then the other half. What'd you say?
Is it Smolderon?
Yeah, Smolderon.
Yeah.
We did like 2 half groups and killed him the first time, because it was just, there's some fights that don't scale well. Going from like 10 to 30 people.
You know, my guild had the funniest bug that I've ever experienced on Mythic Smolderon.
Ooh, what'd you get?
So our hunter, Vixie, who we like to ceaselessly mock, was doing this thing where he would feign death at the end of a mythic pull when everyone's dead. You know, we're progging. And, you know, you feign death and the boss resets. And interestingly, you get these balls that tether to you on Mythic, and they follow you. They fixate. Yeah. And at the start of the next pull, we kept getting explosions on them because we had extra balls that we couldn't stagger the explosions for. And we're like, what's going on here? We saw that. And then Vixie's like, you know, the balls from the previous pull are still following me. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
Oh my! How long did they know? Like, did they feign death and then like what?
It was probably about a series of 4 pulls where we were wiping on the first set of balls because he was getting fixated from the end of the previous pull.
Okay,
and it kept feign deathing.
Because when I'm picturing my head, right, like I'm picturing kind of like this like animated cartoon moment, right, where your whole raid team is like up front staring at the boss, your raid leader's explaining like mechanic changes, and then this hunter friend of yours is like behind the group running away from these balls that are like fixated on him. No one else is aware, and he kind of knows something's going on, but he's so busy trying not to die that
it was the most bizarre bug I've ever seen, because the balls would just freeze when we were out of combat. So they actually weren't following him until we resumed combat with Smolderon, and then they fixated him again and would just run into him. I've never seen a bug like that where some of the mechanics didn't despawn.
Yeah, and it just pauses, right? Like, because it would be one thing if the mechanic continues and the ball just chases after him or her. And then it stops when it hits them, right? And they're like, okay, now let's do the boss pull. But to just freeze the mechanic and wait until, that's so odd.
Yeah, it looked like a visual bug. We're like, those are fake. Like, they can't, there's just a visual bug. But no, they're real. They gave us all debuffs. Even when the mechanic hadn't yet come out yet, we had them out.
Wow. How interesting. While we're on the topic, I got one more question, and then I think Chicken's gonna take us through some news, things going on in WoW this week, things that are happening, or just topics to talk about. But I want to ask you, because you had made the joke about, staring at raid frames, and that is actually, oddly enough, it's a comment that I've seen multiple times on content that I've posted, whether on YouTube or even podcast comments I've gotten from people or comments on stream talking about add-ons, right? And one of the things that they hate about add-ons is they feel like it, and I don't think it's an add-on issue, because I feel like even if you're using the default UI, you'd probably be doing the same thing. But from a healer perspective, it does often feel like you're staring at raid frames the whole time, right? And obviously that's not everybody's cup of tea. That's not, like, for some people that's not gonna be fun. Don't do it. There's 2 other roles you can play. 3 if Augavoker ever comes back as a valid spec again. But you at least have tanks and DPS as other options of things to do. But as a healer, right? If you could make a change to that gameplay design of healer, do you have anything? I know I'm throwing this is like a big question I'm throwing you right now, but if it was like, oh, this would make healing more fun for more people to do, right? Because we're kind of, there's definitely a little bit of a healing shortage, at least in M+. If there was something you could do that would make healing more fun and more people want to do it, what would it be?
That is a hard question, and I'm thinking about it. But it's so ingrained kind of in the role, and something I've done since I first started playing in Burning Crusade.
Yeah.
That it is kind of like a battle of health bars a lot of times. But I don't know if I would, like, you don't want to totally do away with that, because that is kind of in the role, and that's how you're the man in the chair when it comes to monitoring people's health and
that's a cool way to put it.
Things along.
I've never heard someone describe a healer that way, the man in the chair. But you're right.
Yeah, you're watching all of them kind of. Honestly, I see so much about what other people are doing in that perspective that even if I don't kind of focus as much on the fight as the other roles do. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not like you can ignore mechanics, right? So it's not like you're sitting there just like, oh, I'm watching health bars and I'm not going to do any other mechanic, right? Like, you still have to watch your feet. You still have to place yourself in the right spots at the right time. Roll balls when you have to roll balls. And I do agree, by the way. That's such a fun mechanic.
It's very fun.
Oh, absolutely. What was that old, like, Japanese game on, like, PlayStation or something?
It's like, is it Katamari or Calamari?
I think it's Katamari, because I always want to call it calamari, like the octopus.
Yeah, like the squid.
Or squid, yeah.
It is. It's Katamari, yeah.
Katamari, man. What a game. For anybody who never played, there's this old game called Katamari, and you roll a ball around, and as you roll it over stuff, like cities and people and things, it would just get bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't remember what the objective was. I just remember, like, some big dude in the sky or something.
Yeah. I don't quite remember either, that you could, like, roll yourself into the size of a planet.
Yeah, it felt like a fever dream of a game, to be honest. In hindsight looking at it. But Chicken, dude, I want to toss the ball to you real quick, man. I know you've got a couple topics that you want to kind of go through today, and things you're interested in talking about.
Yeah. And sorry, I've become a little self-conscious of my mic over the past 15 minutes. So, as per usual, I haven't really said much. But I kind of had a question as we kind of roll into some more discussion for Oreo. Swag and I are both tanks, and we talk very much a tank perspective on this podcast. I'd say pretty frequently. Is there anything that you can definitively say is different from other expansions in the War Within? I know we're coming out of Dragonflight. Healers definitely seem to have the bad end of the stick, if you will, and now it kind of seems that maybe tanks are on that end of the stick, and maybe healers are kind of in this other area. Swag and I constantly are talking about how can Blizzard fix tanking and that kind of aspect. But, like, from your point of view, what is that thing about healing that hey, enough about this tank business, like, Blizzard needs to fix healing? Can you speak anything to about the War Within versus Dragonflight, anything in particular?
So one of the main changes between Dragonflight, and I'm talking just based off my memory, so I don't remember the numbers quite in my head.
Oh, we make up numbers all the time. You're good. You're good.
They did a lot of mana nerfs going out of Dragonflight, and there was two kind of subsets of healers amongst other different categories of healers that always ran out of mana and healers that stayed at 100% the entire fight because their kit didn't really even rely on mana.
Right.
And it was kind of this push and pull. And they kind of wanted to make, well, they said this in a blue post, they wanted to make, mana being a resource, something that mattered for everybody. And kind of their answer to that was just to make all kinds of mana return sources worse and kind of harder to deal with. And I know that turned a lot of people off to the game because back in like really older State of WoW, kind of Wrath of Lich King, Burning Crusade, if you ran out of mana, you couldn't do anything. And if you managing your mana was part of being a talented healer back then. In the more modern State of WoW, that was not the case. So they were trying to kind of bring it kind of back to that, it kind of felt like. And a lot of people weren't willing to do that because they didn't want to have to manage mana on a raid fight or in Mythic Plus. And that's not the only reason kind of, why the state of healing changed, but them nerfing kind of the resources as well as damage and healing kind of balance. They've always had this struggle between wanting healers to do damage and wanting healers to do no damage, only healing. That's a constant kind of push and pull.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I feel like that's... And me, the only time I ever heal is on a monk. So it's like, I don't even know what doing damage or not doing damage on a healer is like, because that's literally like the only thing you do when you play Mistweaver.
In fact, earlier this season, Mistweaver was very meta in Mythic Plus.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
How many Mistweavers were there for Race to World First? For Liquid?
At least 2.
Yeah, didn't they have like 2 or 3 Mistweavers and then like 2 or 3 Windwalker monks? I think
Monk was very represented in the Race to World First this year.
Yeah, shout out to our monks who listen to the podcast. You guys matter too, especially this season. Maybe not next season, but you matter right now. So be proud.
Really.
I will say real quick before I respond to what Oreo just said. I will say this season actually tanks don't feel too bad. Like my damage output feels pretty good when I'm running keys. I'm easily out DPSing. Not easily. I'm through my effort and rotation skills, I am out DPSing, I think, low-performing DPS players. But still, obviously, being blown out of the water by high-performing DPS players. And so that feels like a good spot. I didn't like last season where tanks felt really, really, like, bleh. Like I don't know. It got to a point where I was like, what's even the point of trying to do damage? I'm not doing nothing.
Yeah, that's fair.
With that said, though, I did notice last season as well, they tried to push towards some things that were very old school WoW feeling. My threat gen last season felt horrible, right? Like it felt like threat management and aggro was supposed to be a part of gameplay again for tanks, which is a very classic thing to do. And it wasn't fun. WoW is just a different game now than it was then. What it reminded me of, though, is like back in class, whenever I would heal a dungeon or have somebody heal in a dungeon, we'd pull some trash, kill it, and then like sit down and wait for the healer to like drink some water and then go pull. It was a differently paced game. And raid is one thing because at least in raid, it's like, okay, the goal is to like by the end of this fight, basically be out of mana, right? Like I have this much mana, let me try to use it up by the end of the fight. I'm sure though I'm oversimplifying it and it's a bigger conversation than that, and feel free to go into that. But M plus to me, M plus seems to be an area of WoW that's such a uniquely different game than where WoW started at, that like the idea of like mana shortages in M plus, it just feels bad. Like it's so awkward as a tank when I'm like getting yelled at by a healer for not like or for not stopping, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Like I got to get a weak or something that like tells me when my
timetable.
Yeah. But it I don't think it feels great, right? It doesn't feel great to have to stop your whole group and be like, hey guys, can we stop? I need to hold everybody up while you stare at the clock and I drink water. And so, yeah, no, I totally get that. I totally get that.
Mhm.
How do you feel about because you brought up the DPS for healers question? Because in my mind, I feel like healers doing decent DPS is like a win-win.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I know some people are like adamantly against it. So I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really comes down to kind of a person's own opinion on it. Like, certain healers are going to feel like they should only have to heal and they don't necessarily want to do DPS. And on the other side, like, the more meta kind of healers tend to be the ones that are able to do it and heal at the same time. Like, classes that have damage woven into their kit. Disc Priest Monk is very meta this tier for that reason.
Yeah.
And like back in Shadowlands, when I really enjoyed pushing Mythic Plus on my Shaman, no surprise, Resto Shaman did a lot of damage in Mythic Plus back then.
Oof.
Yeah.
They had like an Earthquake Elemental, and man, what else did we have back then? Vesper Totem. I miss it.
You said Swag's safety word, elemental Resto Shaman. Sorry.
Dude, I love Resto Shaman, man.
Oof.
Like, especially like
I
a
love
good
it,
like
too.
battle shaman. Like those.
They have so much utility, so many answers to different things. It feels very good to play.
Yeah. In
They're
Shadowlands,
super meta.
I was pumping damage on shaman, on Resto.
Oh yeah. And honestly, it felt really fun and rewarding to be able to heal and do damage at the same time. That is, that's of course going to feel good.
Yeah. Because this is observational. So what I'm about to say is not a statement about your character at all. Listen, as much as I love your streams, I don't know you well enough to actually make a statement on this or not.
Mhm.
But one thing I've observed across the board with friends of mine who are healers, it does seem to be that a lot of them get into healing because healing feels like that gentle support role when they're picking, right? So it's like, oh, I don't have to lead the group, and I'm not competing against two other players on a meter, right? For DPS. As a healer, right, I get to kind of it's more of a gentle support, and that's very appealing. That's like highly appealing to them. But then they play healer, and all of a sudden it is the most panic and stress inducing role that the game can possibly offer. And you're just watching health bars bounce around, and if somebody dies, mostly due to their own fault, you're about to get yelled at, and it's terrifying, and it is super scary, right? And so to me, damage as a healer, being able to do damage as a healer, right? The implication of that is also that maybe the healing requirement won't be quite as high. And so you're not just like constantly spam panic healing, but that your role is to keep the group alive. And then in that downtime, also help contribute towards timing the dungeon through like some extra damage in a rotation that's probably fairly simple to begin with. That to me feels like a healing role that feels more rewarding and like less just overall stressful. Because I think part of it for me is I'm always thinking through what gets people into WoW. How do I help people connect with the game that I love to play? And I do see a lot of people step into the healer role and then just like, in low keys, it's fine. But then the moment you start to push yourself up or do like raiding or something, all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this is actually, and maybe I'm wrong, but to me, this is like the most terrifying role that the game actually has to offer.
It definitely takes getting used to, and you definitely kind of approach fights differently, which I've flexed DPS and healer in the past, and even when I'm in a DPS role, I still come from a healer, that healer point of view, which affects my DPS as well. But from what I've noticed, like when it feels most rewarding in terms of like damage and healing is not having to choose between the two, and especially if you're able to do damage and heal at the same time, like particularly like Disc Priest comes to mind because to do healing they do damage. Vesper Totem, Acid Rain. I always felt very rewarded when I was able to kind of focus on healing while also maintaining DPS. And that is kind of a maybe that's, when I think about it, that's why it felt good. But it is definitely kind of, you have to think about the damage intervals in a fight. You get a sense for the fight pattern the more you do fights, which is kind of fun. You kind of have to think about things before they happen. plan for them. It's more of a puzzle than a DPS race. It is a little bit less competitive, I would say, too, than being a damage dealer when you're fighting with, 15 or so other people to be on top. The healers tend to be a smaller core. And we still get competitive between me and my healers, and we have fun with it.
Yeah, be honest with us. Are you out parsing? Are you out parsing your fellow raid healers?
My current raid healers I love, and I would never purposely do something to mess them up. But I know in the past, when I used to play Rusted Druid, certain people really like to troll me. Life grip me during Trank when you weren't able to move with it before, or revival right when I start Trank. Oh, it's hilarious.
So I raid healed for a little bit in Shadowlands before I went back to tanking. And it was fun. I enjoyed it. The problem I had, and sorry, your story now is making me think of this, is we had 2 healers on our raid team at the time who were like, we were only doing heroic. So I think we were doing heroic at the time. Maybe it was heroic. I think. I don't know. I don't remember. Definitely wasn't mythic though. I think it was heroic. And they were like constantly competing for parses. Like heavy, 2 druids heavily competing against each other for parses. And I was playing a shaman, and no one ever like needed healing because again, these guys were like, I think back then in Shadowlands 2, druids were like rewarded for overhealing at the time. And so like nobody's health was moving anywhere. And I was just like doing damage. Even my raid leader knew. He'd be like, "Swag, I know what's going on. You don't have to worry. Like I'm not. I see you're at least throwing little meatballs around. So I'm happy." I was like, "Thanks." But the moment, but the reason I bring it up, it was so funny because they would heavy compete, and then the moment like one of them would run out of mana, they start yelling at me and be like, "I need a mana tide totem," and I'm like, "Yo, it's my mana tide totem. Not my fault." And I would like refuse to give them the mana because I'm like, I can finally heal now. Calm down. Like now that you're out of mana, maybe I have a chance. Maybe I have a chance to do something. One chain heal.
R.I.P. mana totem.
Yeah, rest in peace. Moment of silence for the mana tide.
Now it's a healing tide talent.
Oh, that's true. But
I want 2 totems.
I would say honestly, they should. Yeah, shaman should become a mana battery again. That was peak gameplay.
Yeah. We had mana spring, mana tide. They nerfed both of them multiple times, and then they just got rid of mana totem altogether and said, if you really want mana return, you can put it in your healing tide. I want my old totems back.
You can put it in your healing tide. Oh my gosh. Have you, I'm assuming you have, I know we haven't talked about it too much, but have you been running Mythic Dungeons this season as well? Quite a bit?
I have.
Nice. I have not, so all different. I've been crazy busy these past 2 weeks with work. I'm finally free. Today I was finally running keys again for like the first time in a minute, and it was so fun. I was enjoying it. Chicken, I saw you said something though in our notes about completion rates of Mythic Dungeons.
Yeah, so something different they've been doing on Wowhead, I think this season that I haven't noticed them do in past seasons, or maybe I just never really cared.
Yeah.
Is I think every week they've been putting out the completion rates and dungeon participation for season 2. And I always think it's kind of just cool to look at them. And, well, from my perspective, just ask you and now our guest what you think the highest completion rate dungeon was this week. So last week, I believe it was Dark Flame Cleft. And we talked about that because I'm pretty sure that dungeon is just free at this point.
It's got a little wonkiness towards the final boss. But again, I don't think it's hard. I think it's just kind of wonky, if that makes sense.
Wonky? Yeah, I mean, it does.
Yeah.
What do you think is the highest completion rate for this week? Or, well, previously last week?
If I had to guess, and it's probably what I guessed last week when we talked about this again, but Mechagon?
No,
Or
it is
Theater
not
of Pain.
Mechagon.
Maybe a Theater of Pain.
Dude, okay. Mechagon and Theater of Pain have the lowest completion rate the last week. Yeah, they do. I swear. Dude, I swear.
Oh my gosh.
I'm
Look
not
how
even
out of the
kidding.
loop I am. Oh my gosh.
Did they nerf the Dark Flame Cleft timer already? I can't remember when that was.
They did, yes. That was last week.
Oh wow.
But somehow it still managed to have the highest completion rate.
I would say it's probably still the top.
It is.
Oh, they shortened the
definitely
timer.
still. Yeah, they did. Uh-huh.
Oh, that's rare. That's rare for them to do that. Wow.
It was pretty free before, but I was surprised to see a nerf on it.
I guess it makes sense though, because going into this season, everybody was talking about how horrible Dark Flame Clef was going to be. So they probably tried to like over.
They softballed it.
Yeah. All right, Ori, what do you think? What do you think? Before Chicken spoils it, what if you had to guess? Highest completed key this week.
I just spoiled it.
Oh, you did?
Dark Flame.
Yeah, it's still Dark Flame.
Oh, it's still Dark Flame. Oh.
Yeah, it's still Dark Flame.
Despite the nerf.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's like 90% completion rate, which is kind of nuts.
Yo, anybody got a Dark Flame plus 25 that I can do?
I think I have a Dark Flame plus 10.
Yeah,
there you go.
I'll take it. I have. Okay, don't hate. Chat. Don't make fun. You can make fun. Actually, if you want to make fun of me, there's a link to the Discord down below in the description.
Oh my gosh!
You can join the Discord and make jokes, dude. I have not done a 10 yet this season.
Oh, that's fine.
Which is not for me, dude. I feel so behind.
Have you done KSM yet?
No, bro. That's how behind I am.
Ooh,
like when I said I'm behind, dude,
behind.
I'm like behind, bro. I have for Motherload, I think I have like a 2.
Oh, I don't have anything for Motherload. I'm trying to get KSM without Motherload.
Oh, dude, Motherload's not that bad. It's pretty easy.
Well, not according to this. Actually, no. It's the second highest timed.
Oh. Are you you're tanking, right?
What kind of question is that?
I don't know, dude. Sometimes you DPS. It's a very valid question.
Well, no, especially since I'm not raiding this season, I'm definitely not touching DPS, which is kind of sus for me. So maybe towards like the end of the season, I'll probably DPS. But then by the end of the season is when they'll slap Unholy with a bunch of nerfs because it's like the best DPS right now for higher keys.
Interesting. Yeah, because I think the route, as a tank, the route in Motherload is intimidating because there's just so much crap and so easy to butt pull things, and you're just nervous about way over pulling the timer. But once you get comfortable with the route, it's actually not a bad dungeon. It's very enjoyable.
It's always one that I thought I would like because of the, Mechagon kind of vibe it has. Not necessarily Mechagon, but you know what I mean? That gnome kind of like engineering vibe-esque,
Yeah, Oreo, I didn't warn you, but Chicken is a very big gnome player. So,
yes.
I
love my gnome.
Sorry to throw that at you this late into the podcast.
Yeah. Though, surprisingly, let's talk about mechagnomes and how awful of a race it is. Oh my gosh.
Do you think they'll ever buff mechagnomes to wear pants?
Dude, I hope so one day. Oh, what? No!
What if it was like an option? Like, what if it was just like a checkbox at the barbershop? Like, do you want pants to show? Yes or no?
I mean, maybe.
I guess once the pants are on though, like, how do you know? Well, I guess the arms, right? You can still tell from the arms.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but also like blood elves. Like, what's even the difference between a blood elf and a void elf anymore at this point?
I don't. A racial probably.
The racial abilities, yeah, but you can make them look the same now, right?
Pretty much. Whichever Kool-Aid they drink.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's kind of cool. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Don't ask me.
Right, I think it's just their eye. I mean, obviously you have like the skin color options for void elves, and their eyes are different. But now that like void elves can be like normal blood elf skin color, like there's really not much of a difference. So I feel like with mecha gnomes, listen, Blizzard, it's time. Give them an option. Let them wear. I would play a mecha gnome if they were allowed to wear pants.
No, you wouldn't.
Dude, if I didn't have to look like a diaper baby, I would maybe consider it for like an alt.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe consider it for like a minute, and then you would be like, no, they're too short. They can't reach far and do as much damage.
Oh, dude, you know what the worst is? Ori, I don't know if you've ever ran into this in a key with like a group, but if you have certain dungeons, I think Shadow Moon Burial Ground was one, but there's another one recently where water can be at a level that like most people can just run through it no problem, but then gnomes have to swim through it.
I have noticed that because it's like kind of an argument that some of my friends have made about, hitboxes. And hitboxes in World of Warcraft for players are all the same, but the heights actually are different. So you can swim on a gnome through a puddle.
Yeah, yep. So just a note for our gnome players out there, avoid puddles when trying to kite or catch up to your group. It does help. It does help. I don't even remember where this conversation was going. Oh, we were talking about completion.
We were talking about Mythic Dungeons, and I have to apologize. Last week I said that I thought Theater of Pain was an awful dungeon, and I think it was just the experience I had the first time I ran it. I ended up running it again, and it's pretty good. I'll give you that one.
Yeah, dude, Theater of Pain's fun. The only thing I don't get, and it might have been the healer I had the last time I ran it, but I always have trouble. So in Theater of Pain, after that first boss, there's the trash pack in the warrior hallway, and then you have like the little mini bossy guy.
Like the lieutenant.
Yeah, lieutenant-y thing, right? And
wait, whoa, wait. You don't go to that boss first?
No, the warrior hallway?
Yeah, you don't do that one first?
Yeah, I do that one first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot about the council fight. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So after the first boss, you go into the warrior hallway, and then like immediately in the warrior hallway, it like you see the two dudes fighting and one will win. And sometimes you get the one that has the like fist weapons and just punches you around. Bro,
what?
how
those
do you
can switch?
Yeah. How do you live that?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just realizing that you can switch those.
Dude, he does like twice my damage or twice my health over time. And so I'm like sitting there like fat fingering the death strike button, just trying to keep my health up. Got like 12, but the problem is he does it a lot, so he'll like cast it like every like 8 seconds or something crazy. And so eventually, like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. It makes no sense to me. It's got to be doable because Oreo's over here running plus 48s, so clearly some tanks are surviving it. I don't know. That's my one gripe with that dungeon.
I've mostly run with a Vengeance Demon Hunter this season, and the only thing I've heard about tanking at all this season is from the perspective of a Vengeance Demon Hunter who talks about how their aggro is bugged, which it is, like confirmed bugged, that their aggro tables just don't work, and a lot of their abilities don't generate threat.
Really?
Great for them.
Great for me. More invites, please.
They have bugged aggro, but they have still a ton of damage and utility and all that. But I run with the Devastation Evoker as well, who they do very front-loaded aggro. Mm-hmm. So it's very funny to see like them pull Lieutenant, and our Vengeance Demon Hunter would lose aggro to our Devastation Evoker, and he'd get whacked with the Tank Buster.
You gotta watch out. Those Dev Evokers and those Ret Paladins, they'll come for your aggro.
Oh, yeah.
They'll do it. Listen. I'm walking up on the pack, and I can just, they're like that little meme with the raccoon rubbing his hands together. Like they know what they're after. They want that threat. They're going to pretend like they don't. They're going to yell about it, but they want it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. They have all 10 fingers on every cooldown button that they're about to hit simultaneously. I don't even know why they don't get a global cooldown, because they're hitting all of them right at once.
Oh my gosh.
All right. All right. Anyways, we're going to move forward. Yeah, chicken?
Well, real quick, just talking about dungeons, I just wanted to... What do we think the best dungeon is this season? Or what is least our favorites?
Our least favorite or most favorite?
Well, let's do both. Let's do, most favorite and least favorite. And I'll let you start, Oreo.
Okay. I'm going to go like the hot take of the easiest key being my favorite, because I've had to run a lot of them for... Mythic Plus is very intertwined with raiding in terms of the Great Vault. So, like, you want to get 10s done each week to have a good vault to open up for Mythic pushing. And Dark Flame has a bunch of crit verse gear, which my Restless Shaman really loves. So, I'll take Dark Flame as my favorite. And Prairie as my least favorite. I hate that place.
Oof. Thank you.
Priory.
Oh my goodness. Someone finally agrees.
Cinder Brew is hard too.
Yeah.
Mostly from a healing perspective.
Listen, I don't hate Priory. It's like middle ground for me. I think I liked it for a minute because I felt comfortable in it. But there are some oddities. I could definitely see from a healing perspective. Are you sure though? Like, I would imagine as a healer having 12 consecrates on the ground is probably great.
Oh my gosh.
And the divine tolls going off and hitting people for about 60% of their health back to back.
Dude, oh my gosh. There's one thing I love whenever Blizzard puts a class into like a dungeon and they're just like, here's a paladin and it's gonna play like a paladin. And then all of a sudden you realize how obnoxious your class actually is to play against.
Do you guys know about the Holy Paladin bug right now with Divine Toll?
No.
There is a current bug, which I don't know if they have fixed it in the latest Holy Paladin buffs, but I hear about it from my Holy Paladin on our team. They have a range bug on it where it doesn't hit but 5 yards around them.
Oh, jeez.
Oh.
So when they're trying to heal people with their Divine Soul, it's just like a little tiny circle around them. But the Divine Toll in that dungeon hits people from about 30 yards away.
Yeah,
dude, there's a lot of... I feel like this whole season feels... And maybe it's not more than normal, but it feels a lot buggier than a normal season does. Did you see that Fortified was buffing 30% instead of 20% in dungeons?
Yeah.
And then, after the Reddit post was made... Because some dude noticed it because he was like... I'm not a numbers guy, right? But some dude noticed it because he was, like, watching the numbers and the math wasn't mathing. And then he realized it was a 30% buff. And like a few hours maybe after he posted it on Reddit, Blizzard went and then like fixed the issue.
Oh jeez.
Somebody did the math for them.
Yeah, dude. And I love how quick of a fix it must have been because the post, I have the post up on Reddit right now. The post was from 8 or 9 hours ago at this point, right? And Blizzard fixed it. If he posted 9 hours ago, Blizzard's fix went live 8 hours ago. Which means 1 hour after he posted it,
Jeez.
Blizzard went and fixed the issue.
Love that.
So there just had to be a 30 somewhere in their numbers that somebody just went 20. Oh, well.
How do you think they found that, though? Like, do you think they just had... someone had to just
The
be
person
like...
who found it?
Yeah,
So-
someone's friend just had to be like a mad Redditor, and he's like, "Oh, hey, I found this article, and I know you
how
work at
Blizzard
Blizzard."
found it. I would gamble Blizzard's staff actually probably watches the WoW Reddit pretty heavily for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's
Right,
That's fair.
because they
that's
have
fair.
people who are like paid to watch the WoW forums, like the actual WoW forums.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
sure
that's
watching
fair.
the WoW Reddit is theirs. The way they found the bug itself though was that they were doing the math of a massive stomp, right? And so and so
gotcha.
their add-on, I guess they had an add-on called Not Even Close, and so it was correctly predicting the damage value of massive stomp in a 6. But then when he went to a 7 where Fortified kicks in, all of a sudden massive stomp was his add-on was not predicting the amount of damage it was doing. It was actually predicting too low. And so he went into his logs and he was doing the math and he said, okay, well, if I multiply it by 30 instead of by 20, will that now change how it works? And he found that it did change it. And the numbers were perfectly in line when multiplied by 30. So
I'll give the guy a prize.
Yeah, dude, he needs a prize because I would never notice, man. Someone asked me today on stream how much health my DK had. Oh gosh, I had somebody in game whisper me who happened to be looking at the stream. They whispered me and told me.
Oh, dude, you should have just looked at your health bar.
I have mine set to percentage because I'm dumb.
Oh, what a nerd.
Yeah, because I just look at it, I'm like, oh no, it's low. Let me death strike.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, I know. I'm an embarrassment. It's okay. It's fine. It's all right. Again, if you want to make fun of me, there's a Discord link in the description.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Oh yeah. Well, we haven't finished. We haven't finished ranking before we change topics.
I know. I was just about to ask you.
Okay. I want to feel like one of the cool kids and say Dark Flame Cleft, but I also don't think I've done enough Dark Flame Clefts to like actually be able to like justify putting that in there. So I'm gonna say right now what I'm enjoying, I've actually been low-key kind of enjoying Floodgate a lot.
Oof.
I didn't think I would, but I think yeah, I've been enjoying Floodgate, but I think Mechagon might be my favorite still at the moment. I don't know why. I just like Mechagon. I think from a tank perspective, it's a fun tank dungeon, especially because the trash isn't as bad as it used to be. In that one hallway, right after you kill the first boss, all the like drill bots and the slimes are way easier. So you just do a big chunky pull. Yeah, you just do a big chunky pull. It's fun. So I would say Mechagon's my favorite, and my least favorite, I don't even know. Okay, this is an odd choice. I mean, Motherload is a little complicated routing-wise, but that's fine. I'll get over it. Rookery is just boring. I don't think Rookery's that fun. That's my pick. Rookery just feels boring. But Brewery is probably the one I actually struggle with the most.
Yeah, trash in there hits really hard.
Dude, and people always want you to pull big, too. Like, people love a huge opening pool.
Gosh.
A huge opening pool in Brewery. Like, they'll beg for it, dude. Like, let me tell you, that Dev Evoker is begging for a massive opening pool in Brewery, and then surely enough, he is gonna go fly over and butt pull that one walking ogre, and then it's all done. It's game over. It's game ogre.
Oh my gosh!
All right, Chicken. What's your pick?
It's kind of funny. Hey, you kind of stole it. I'm not gonna lie. I am vibing Floodgate. I think it's a really good dungeon. I kind of like those dungeons that have like that side objective where you got to go around and collect all the crates or destroy all the crates or whatever you got to do to them.
Yeah.
And low-key, I think it makes it a good experience for the newer people, right? Because it kind of sets that route without them having to go on like Keystone Guru or something else to see a route as a tank, right? It's kind of like, hey, you got to go to these 5 areas, so you're gonna have to most likely pull trash around those areas, right? And I think that's definitely good for a new tank or anyone new to the game, right?
I do think that's what Motherload misses, because Motherload's just like...
Oh, you think?
Yeah, right, because Motherload hits you right at the start, and I think Brackenhide was the same way, right? Like, Brackenhide was an open world dungeon, but it said, oh, hey, you have to stop at like 5 of these points or something and free these little guys. And then once you got past that, it was actually very, very linear. It disguised itself as not being linear, but it was very linear after that opening bit. But even that opening bit was linear enough because you had places to go. Now, how you pulled, you could refine that, right? So as you got better and better, you could refine it and do better and better.
Yeah.
But that's where I think Motherload's missing, because Motherload, you just load in, you're like, there's a crap ton of trash everywhere, and I don't know what I should or should not be pulling. And it doesn't, you have to go to a boss, but outside of having to go to the boss, it's just kind of like stuff everywhere.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's Floodgate is very much like Brackenhide,
Yeah.
Has that very much open concept of kind of just like going to whatever makes sense first. And it's still like linear in an aspect, And then I'm going to have to agree. I just hate Priory. Priory is just, ugh. I can't get it. I just can't get into a dungeon where people aren't butt pulling like literally almost every mob in the first zone before you get to the first boss. I just can't do it. Like I just don't know what it is. And then I get blamed for it. Yeah, it's terrible. I just Priory needs something. I don't know what it needs, but it just needs something.
No. You two can be honest. It's the podcast. You guys can be honest. You're upset with Priory because you forget to turn around for the blind on the final boss.
Oh my gosh, dude.
I have to call it out for my Mythic Plus group.
I forget all the time.
The grade mechanic.
Yeah, I forget it all the stinking time.
Oh my goodness.
And I think the first week, I think like the first couple weeks, DBM Dungeons didn't call it out too. And then I like forgot to update DBM Dungeons when they did add it in. And so I was like, it's not saying anything. And then I fixed it. Now it tells me. All right.
Yeah, I can usually like the Mythic Plus that have less bosses because the dungeons tend to go faster. And I like, getting them quickly. That's my problem with Theater of Pain. Even when it's not as challenging as it used to be to complete it, it's a pretty like doable key now. But it's still 5 bosses.
Imagine.
No, I can get behind that.
Honestly, yeah. The interesting thing with Theater of Pain 2 is that first boss was like nerfed so hard that I wonder if it could have just been a trash pack at that point. Like what would have happened if we went to Theater of Pain and instead of having boss 1, it was just like a pack of trash right there.
3 mini bosses, sure, yeah.
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 I mean, yeah.
Honestly,
because at this point, all that boss is you're just kiting them around the circle. They're just dropping crap. That's about it.
Yeah, really.
Right. It's way easier than it used to be. I like the changes to the Lich boss. I think they're a lot more fun than. I don't know.
I like it too.
Yeah.
I used to be really hard to heal. One dispel, then the other person just gets withered away.
Now, chicken.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say you had that a conversation about season 3 dungeons coming up.
Yeah, so it looks like it was announced that you can vote, actually, literally vote, for your favorite War Within dungeons, and looks like the winners will be included in season 3 M+, which...
Oh, I thought you were going to have us vote for which ones we thought. There's actually like a real vote going on?
No, that's like a real thing. It was announced by Blizzard today.
I like that system. They started doing that for the, like, you used to be able to vote for the Grimrail Depot to come back and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good kind of take on that, and to be honest, I think we'll kind of see it a little more, because I think my personal opinion is I think as these next 2 expansions come out and how they kind of I don't know what's the trilogy, that's the right word, of the next 3 expansions, the War Within, Midnight, and I always forget the last one.
Yeah.
I think season 4 is gonna kind of become non-existent, and I think this might be their way of trying to give more input on, hey, if we get rid of season 4, which historically has been where we kind of just bring back, in Dragonflight at least we saw that they brought back all the main dungeons. If we get rid of that season 4, if season 3 is the season, the last season for the expansion, what do people want to see in terms of the dungeons? And I think that, maybe is what they're leaning towards. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a good kind of throw here. And to be honest, I mean, you mentioned Grimrail depots. I kind of wish that they would let us vote on the other 4 as well. Because I think it just says 3. No, it doesn't state how many of them will be in. My guess is that they'll probably put in 3 or 4. It'll be the new dungeon for the season 3, and then my guess is 3 or 4 returning dungeons.
That is interesting to me, because you mentioned season 4 as well, and because the impression I had that was season 4 they would do a full return to all of the all eight, or I guess in this case 9 dungeons. And the idea was that way people coming into the expansion late still got to have the full dungeon experience of what the new expansion offered, and not just old rehashed content, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if they're now going, no, season 3 we're going to use dungeons, and also I want to note they're not saying, yeah, season 3 we're going to bring back the dungeons from season 1. They're saying, no, season 3 we're going to bring back your favorites. That does raise the question, right? Like, what is that? Like, is there no season 4? I mean, I wouldn't mind if there was no season 4, because so long as they went into the next expansion after season 3, because season 4 is always just kind of this holdover season. Usually a lot of my friends stop playing during season 4. Things slow down. Raiding is almost non-existent, at least for me. I just don't enjoy raiding during season 4. So it's really just M+, right? M+ is all you kind of have at that point. I did see leaks. There were leaks today in some, I think, PTR files or something for Legion Remix.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so that would, in my mind, that would have taken place during a season 4. So I don't think they're done with season 4s yet. But this poll is definitely intriguing to me. I think for sure. I don't know which one I want to pick though. Dude, okay, listen, I want Dawnbreaker back. I'm voting Dawnbreaker.
Oh yeah.
Dude,
I feel like they have to bring back Dawnbreaker.
Dawnbreaker's just one of the coolest. It's just so cool. It's such a cool dungeon.
My acid rain was bugged in that dungeon for the whole season.
Dude, that was probably the buggiest dungeon ever. But I just loved it.
It was very cinematic.
Dude, it's not winning. Arakara. Who the heck is voting Arakara?
Yeah.
They want their sack brood back.
Oh yeah, basically.
She's right. They do.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, that's 100% it. Only WoW
right.
players would vote based upon the loot in that dungeon.
Dude, but it's true. Like, I guarantee you Arakara is going to be one of them.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Here's how it's going to work out. They're going to vote Arakara because they want the sack brood to return. Then, when the season comes back, they're going to complain that they have to run Arakara on repeat because they need the sack brood and it's not dropping.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly what's going to happen. Oh my gosh.
Oh well. Dude, I got upset. I got upset at Raid this week because I was trying to like grab my, like, not my best, but one of my best trinkets for Blood Decay, but it wasn't letting me roll need on it because it was I guess it's technically a DPS trinket.
Oof.
And I was like, no.
Oof.
And so, like, I think I was talking to Brunick, and Brunick's like, okay, so here's the thing. If you see something and it's questionable, if you change your loot spec before you hit roll, it'll let you roll need.
Oh, really?
Like perfect, thank you. Apparently that's what he's been doing.
I thought you had to roll before you killed the boss. You had to change your loot spec before you killed the boss.
No, he said so long as it's before you hit roll. And apparently it's been working for him.
Gotcha.
Also, I've been getting competitive. We have a new tank this season. It's one of our moderators for the community here, Brunick, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago when Chicken was out. And he's wonderful. But he is an excellent DPS player who's now playing tank because he just wants to do something different this season. And so, like, for the first time in a while, I've been feeling very challenged and very competitive at raid night, trying to, like, dude, the dude's parsing like 99s on every boss pool. And I'm like, okay, I gotta catch up here. My little Blood DK DPS, I gotta catch up. So I've been like digging into like articles on like rotation and like how to maximize Blood DK damage. And historically, I'm more of a defensive trinket guy than an offensive trinket guy because I like being able to pull a little bit bigger. I like being able to take risks. It's more fun to me. Plus, I like standing and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
But this season I've been going more for offensive trinkets because I'm like, I gotta catch up. I gotta prove. Listen, I've been tanking with our guild for a few seasons now, and now Bruno's tanking for one season, and he's blowing me out of the water, dude. I gotta catch up. I can't be the old guy. I'm not ready to retire.
Oh my gosh.
Listen, Oreo. If your raid team needs a new tank, I gotta challenge myself and grow. I gotta step out of the safe spaces I've been standing in. I gotta get rid of my training wheels.
Oh, don't tempt my my GM. He always threatens to leave. He's one of our tanks.
Oh no, I won't. Don't worry. You're safe. Dude, I love the idea of mythic raiding. I always joke that like I really should be mythic raiding. I love it, like, because I love prog. I love like a good slow prog. I like fighting the same boss like weeks in a row. Like that to me is so fun. Just like the slow process of learning a boss fight and overcoming it is so fun. But I feel like the time commitment is just one that at this season in my life I just can't I can't commit to it, which is kind of a bummer, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's totally fair. It's like a huge time commitment. You can only do what you can do.
Only do what you can do. We had a guy on, like a couple months back on the podcast named Capo. Wonderful dude. Love him. Good IRL friend of mine. But his raid team, like I think they raid like 4 nights a week or something. Plus they expect like 1 night a week committed to like doing carries in M+ to help fund the guild banker. Like it's like all And so like trying to get him on the podcast, he's like, "Oh, I play WoW that night. I play WoW that night. I play WoW that night. I play." Oh wait, that night I'm raiding. I'm like, or that night I'm working. I'm like, oh my gosh, is there ever? So we had to like wait till like their raid team was like done for the season to finally have like a minute with him. All right, so moving forward, 11.1. There have been some notes on updates and the PTR, which is really really awesome. I'm excited. I've been really loving a lot of these 0.5 or 11.1.5 patches we've been getting. It's just like a little bit of bonus content. I thought last season it might have been, I think they jumped to it too quick, so I'm hoping they don't jump to it as fast as they did before. Because what was it, dude? It felt like 2 months into the season we had like 11.1.5 or 11.0.5.
Well, that was lined up with the 20th anniversary, right?
Yeah.
So, I personally, I don't think they're going to make that mistake again. But, I mean, hearing about it and seeing things that obviously are, hey, the splash screen even being made kind of makes you worry a little bit, right?
Yeah.
When you see that, hey, they're actively starting to work on things as minor as like a splash screen that I can't imagine would really take that much time in doing, but they are working on it. So are we going to see it again in 2 months? And that kind of begs the question again of, are WoW seasons, starting to shorten up so that they can fit more in? Because, oh my goodness, I think it was, oh my goodness, it would have had to been like 2 months ago or many weeks ago. We kind of looked at the timeline that Blizzard had put out for the next expansion, and it looked like it was going to launch sometime towards the end of this year. That sounds right?
I don't remember. That seems that
I'd almost have to look it up.
No, there's no way. There's no way.
But it didn't seem like it was going to be as long as like a typical WoW expansion has been in the past. Maybe it was early 2026.
Yeah, maybe. I'm pulling up a roadmap right now because I doesn't feel right. Okay. So
yeah, you do that and I'll filibuster.
Wait a second.
No,
wait a second.
Wait, no.
Yeah. So I'm looking at it. Oh, dude, you might be right. Well,
no, really.
Okay, so I'm looking at the roadmap for 2025 right now, right? And so we are in Undermined right now, which was supposed to come out at the very start of spring, which is pretty accurate. I think maybe a hair late, but accurate. Well, no, because spring just launched. Yeah, spring was like last week or first day of spring, right? Because I think they had like free water ice at Rita's and ice cream at Dairy Queen or something.
Oh my gosh.
But anyways, I digress. 11.1.5 is supposed to come out in spring. Also, 11.1.7. Is this the first time we're seeing a 0.7 in like a middle kind of patch? Because normally we see
middle.
Well, what I mean by that is like normally the 0.7 is in like in your 0.2 patch, so like 11.2.7, and that would have season 4 in it, right? Because that's what they did in the past, right? In the past, it was always the 0.2, 0.7 patch that had season 4. But anyways,
I think they've always had 0.7 patches. It's just like it's just content that I don't think you care about, to be honest.
Maybe you might be right. It just says new content and system updates, story and quests. Maybe that's why I've ignored it. However, player housing. So this doesn't say anything about a launch of the new expansion on it, but it does say player housing will be right at the start of winter, which is crazy to think about. But player housing will come out right at the start of winter.
Oh my goodness, that is crazy.
And I'm assuming, and I'm assuming player housing is like pre-patch content.
Yeah, that is definitely what we made the assumption of when we were talking about it, that player housing would come around pre-patch. So yeah, I mean we're looking at an expansion that only lasts close to a year and a half, because the War Within would have launched in August, because I remember I was on a work trip.
Yeah, and
so yeah, we'd be looking at roughly like a year and if that, maybe like a closer to
Wow.
So I mean, what do we think about a shorter WoW? And I think we've or a shorter WoW expansion, and
Yeah.
well, season and expansion, right? One and the same. Well, not one and the same, but we can talk about both. I think when we first talked about this, we did mention, hey, what are our thoughts on this? But maybe we can bring in Oreo and a third perspective. But I'll kind of let you let your thoughts flow first, Swag, and then we'll go around.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, to me, I don't know if I care that much. And I get the argument for I get the argument against shorter expansions. In the sense of you feel like you're getting less content for what you paid for, right? So it's like I just paid for the $60 expansion, and then now I get less time out of that $60 expansion before I have to buy another $60 expansion. And for that, I totally get it. I totally get why people are frustrated. I get the annoyance. I think for me personally, though, I don't know if I care that much about the money spent if that means I'm getting fresh new content, right? And not that dude, I don't make a lot of money, so it's not like I have it to spare, but it's just that to me, Season 4 is just not, I mentioned earlier, Season 4 is not highly compelling gameplay. And so if the option is hey, I can either sit out Season 4 and just stall longer so I can feel like I got more out of it, or I can just have the new expansion now and not do season, because it's not like we're getting a new raid, right? It's not like we're getting new dungeons, right? All we're getting is just a fresh dungeon pool, and then the raids are kind of all coming back on the rotation. I don't know. I would have no problem if Season 4 was dumped. With that said, obviously I still want the expansion to launch, and I want the expansion to feel good and not be bugged out and not have all these problems. So it's kind of hit or miss for me. Ultimately, though, I would say I like the idea. I like the idea of quicker expansions. To me, that's more fun. Plus, I think the start of an expansion is a high point for players coming back to the game. Sometimes when you're late into expansion, even though we know that the catch-up mechanics in WoW are wonderful, right? I'm sure people look at WoW and are like, oh, that's a 20-year-old game. I could never get into it. Nah, dude, it's so easy. Literally, you get in, level up your character, and then you just jump in where everybody else is at, which is awesome. I love that WoW is set up that way. But I do think a lot of people look at a new expansion and they go, oh, that's the time for me to hop in.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. I see both perspectives as well. And coming from a kind of a mythic rating standpoint, I'm definitely no stranger to the people that just kind of get bored when we're done with mythic prog and they're waiting for the next raid to come out and they don't really care about anything else. I think my perspective is a lot different than that, and I'm probably more team quality over quantity content. So I don't mind them taking longer to put content out if it means it's going to work better, feel better, and be more fun. But I also, spend a lot of the time in a season pushing content that I kind of like having a Season 4 where I can grind achievements and transmogs and battle pets and what have you. So, a bit of a change of pace from the average. But that's, just my personal viewpoint on it.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of players that have that same kind of viewpoint, right? Where, you're in a position where it's not like you can just take a break for a season. I mean, you could. If you wanted to, you could just be like, I'm going to take a break for a season. But, I'm sure you love your raid team. I'm sure you love spending time with them. And it's also hard to step out of it and then have a spot to step back into when you're done.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And so to have time where you can go, oh, I actually just want a season where, I'm not feeling super obligated to do everything. Because I do think WoW is very seasonal now, compared to maybe even 5 years ago, right? WoW is very seasonal. Even just, not even in the sense of seasons, but seasonal in terms of at the start of a season, you're super into it, but by the end of the season, everybody's kind of taking a break. It's not the same game where it was you have to grind every single day or else you'll get behind. It's no, you hit your goals and then you wait till the next season comes out and then you hit your goals again. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good or bad thing, but I think right now, I think it can be a very healthy way to play the game and enjoy the game is to have those breaks in there that are naturally you know what? the number of times somebody goes, "Oh, I'm just not enjoying WoW right now." I'm like, "Why don't you play a different game?" And they're like, "That's not the problem. I want to enjoy WoW." It's like, no, if you're not enjoying it, take a break, go play another game, and then come back, and you'll feel a lot better. But sometimes you need to step away.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
What are your thoughts, Chicken?
Yeah, I mean, I it's hard to say because we've talked about this a lot, and it kind of comes back to that, everyone wants what's worth their money, right? It is a game that, a lot of people would say we pay a fair amount of money to play. I mean, it's not like it's, $60 and then you can play it for however long you want for that one price.
Yeah.
A monthly subscription or yearly or however people pay it. I mean, to play a game that gets heavily updated. Now, to say that, the aspect of, hey, let's kind of grind this content for a little longer versus, hey, I want new content. It's kind of here or there, but, it does beg the question, with these expansions coming out, is it worth the $60 that we pay for the expansion if it's only going to last for, a year and a half? I mean, you think of other games that get, yearly or bi-yearly, or not bi-yearly, every 2 years, you're looking at a new game. So technically sort of what an expansion is in WoW, but
yeah,
are we getting everything out of that expansion that we feel like we should? And if we aren't, is Blizzard going to listen to that, right? I think that's a big key, right? If it comes around and War Within's like, hey, we're done with War Within, we're going to move on to Midnight, and people just aren't ready for that, is Blizzard going to listen and say, hey, okay, we realize people, maybe we do want a Season 4, and maybe we just don't want it as long, right? Maybe we want our 3 seasons that are just as long, and maybe we just want like a 2 or 3 months of a Season 4. Or are they just going to say, no, we're just, no more Season 4, we're just going to keep the 3 seasons and then move on to the next one?
Yeah, I don't mind a short Season 4 if they're like, oh, hey, it's going to be 2 months, 3 months, like a 3-month Season 4. I'd be like, okay, cool. Just like a little bit. But at the same time, to me, like the money's worth thing is hard because if there's not new content, then like what am I actually getting for that money other than stalling?
Sure.
Right? And that's kind of the question of like, okay, well, I've done it all, right? Like I've done everything. What I am curious about though, do you guys think, and then we'll move on to some listener questions. But knowing that Legion Remix is most likely what's coming next around the corner, we only ever saw one remix already, right? We saw Pandaria. Hot take. I think WoD would have been a great remix because you could have done like the good parts of WoD and not had like the negative parts of WoD where it was like lack of content on release and all this other stuff. Because again, it's remix. So, but we could, another conversation another day. With Legion coming out, Legion had M+. They don't have to do remix the way they did the first time, obviously, right? Like it was a test for them. So it could look like anything this next time around. I don't know what they learned. We do know that remix was running off the retail engines. We know that remix in some way was still the same game but phased differently. Right? Like it was all built within normal WoW structure. Even the characters got transferred over when it was all said and done. You had all your transmogs, right? Like even stuff right? So it was connected. It was very connected. What if, and I don't know if this would be the case, but what if Season 4 was Legion Remix? Like, what I mean by that was, like, Season 4 comes along, and it just is Legion Remix. Like, all of a sudden, the whole dungeon pool is Legion M+, right? And artifact weapons come back, artifact weapons come back in, and you have to, like, power them up or something, and, like, you're basically just doing remix for Season 4. Maybe they bring back a Legion raid, or even do the gambit of raids like they did. I don't know. I think remix missed in the point where it lets you power up so much that things kind of became pointless. It felt more like mount farming sometimes, or like old content farming. But But that is my question I have. Like, do you guys think that we could see some sort of crossover, more so than we saw before, going into Legion Remix?
I'll let you go first, Oreo.
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Maybe like a quick question: how much did you guys go into Remix for each of you? Since I don't know.
I didn't go into terribly far. I leveled up a few characters. I mostly used it for leveling. We did some raiding as a guild, but I think we quickly realized that it was a very different experience and wasn't quite what a lot of our guildies were looking for, and so it didn't last super long. But I leveled up a few.
So I leveled 2 characters, and I got my mage to max gear and did mythic siege like a couple times.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I did it a lot.
Perfect.
I'm a bit of a collector. I like going after. Like I was farming mantids in the valley for a very specific transmog offhand to drop. For, like, it only dropped from these mantids in the valley. And it was a green item. Like, that's how far I went into it. And I leveled a bunch of characters up. Got max gear on, like, I think 1-2 characters.
Yeah.
It was to me, it was really cool because the power scaling did get so insane, especially with, like, the threads and stuff. And it became basically where you could solo kind of raid boss and stuff, but I kind of liked that. I think that's kind of cool because I was able to start carrying my friends who barely played it in like mythic content and just bring them through Terrace of Endless Spring, and I really liked it. It was fun mode for me because I love grinding cosmetics and I bought every single thing from every vendor.
And it kind of sounds like too it was able to take, because you had just mentioned, right, like there's something nice for you in season 4 to maybe focus on less competitive content, right? So it sounds like Remix not only offered you another thing to do, but it offered you another thing to do that was like absolutely in line with what you like to do during that off season.
Yeah. And it was kind of fun to, do Mythic Siege like 20 times to try and get the lucky cricket cage in this different color. Like,
yeah,
I had a little add-on to tell me when cosmetics were dropping. I tend to like, to me, I'm going like at my pace, but most people like are like, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah, but it's
in
fun.
terms of like, yeah, I'm having fun. It may look intense on the outside, but
I think too, admittedly, I think what did it for us is we had like one dude in the guild who like spammed, or maybe 2 dudes who like spammed the frog thing at the start of Remix.
Yeah,
and so we went in.
Didn't quite hit that wave, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but.
So we went into like our first raid night or something, and like I think it's discouraging when like your whole raid team walks in and 2 dudes are doing like 90% of the damage, and you're just like, never mind. What are we doing? Why are we here? And you can't catch up because the frog thing was over. So you're like, we're not catching up. It's done. Let's go home. But no, I think it's cool. I think it's cool. What? So then, do you think maybe you would prefer Remix staying a separate, like a totally separate game mode than from retail? Kind of basically how they did it for Pandaria.
I think it would be okay, kind of either way they decide to do it. Like, I can't really picture bringing my main character, like, without it being separate, but if they can find a way to do it, I wouldn't be necessarily opposed.
And it's fun. It's fun, like, getting kind of juiced up and overpowered.
Starting over.
Yeah.
It felt different. Plunderstorm had that feel, too.
Yeah. Dude, I love Plunderstorm.
Me too.
I played the heck out of it this time around, because I couldn't play it as much last time because I was busy, and so I packed it in.
Yeah.
All right, we do have some questions from listeners, so I'm actually going to shift gears and get us through those because I want to honor everybody's time here. Again, Oreo, thank you so much for being with us. So we got a few listener questions, and feel free to chime in on any of them. Your opinions matter, even on these questions. So unless if these questions scare you, then don't worry, they scare me too sometimes. We got some oddballs. I'm kidding. I love them all. All right, so I'm going to take a question from... Oh, I didn't put the name next to it, but I did see it come through. I want to honor the question. It was about professions. It was Kali. Kali posted the question about professions, which I don't do a ton of professions, so I might sit out a little bit on this question. It said, how do you feel about Blizz possibly transferring to a Warband reagent bank accessible by every character in your Warband? Imagine it could work how reagents do in Guild Wars 2, where there's a cap to the amount you can store, but there's a spot for every reagent.
Is that like something that's been rumored?
I think right now it's probably, most likely, it's driving from a frustration that Kali might be having with how he's dealing with.
I like that they mentioned Guild Wars 2, because coincidentally, I played a lot of Guild Wars 2, and I love their banking system.
Yeah.
Their reagent banks are really convenient. They have that one button, deposit all materials, and your entire character roster has access to them. I think that'd be sick.
That makes sense. I got no complaint.
Yeah, I don't see that as a terrible thing. And you know, we've talked about this before. I think the Warband is kind of like WoW's introduction to seeing how that kind of how that gameplay can run to your whole roster, your whole character list. You know, as player housing comes through, you know, what does that look like for your entire, you know, Warband and your character list, right? You know, are you going to have one house for each character? Are you going to have like a shared house? You know, personally, I think Warband is kind of their way of just introducing, hey, you know, let's put a couple characters together and, you know, you can share loot across them and just kind of get a general feel of that. And until they maybe roll out, hey, we're just going to do that for all your characters, for certain items, obviously. But yeah, I think this is a good idea. I don't see any like crazy brokenness in it, but I'm sure someone will find something broken with it.
Yeah, I guess the question really is, right, like when it comes to warbands, because this is more than just a question regarding professions, but the warband question. At what point is something tied to your character individually, and is at what point something tied to you as the player, right? And I think that's the questions that warbands have to offer, right? Like I don't think warband should ever get to a spot where I open up my spell book and I choose which spec I want to play of any character I've hit max level with, right? So I'm not like, oh, let me just swap to my Resto Shaman spec real quick on my, right? Like from my DK, right? So clearly there's a line somewhere. But I would say also at the same time, profession materials are an interesting thing, because ultimately what's going to happen, right? You're going to store all those profession materials. Either you're going to mail them all to one character and spend time organizing them. So then every time you need them, you'll go log into that one character, check that character's bank, find the item that you need, put it in your bag, walk over to the mailbox and mail that item out. Or you'll farm materials on all your characters, and then every time you need one, you go, which one is my skinning, my leatherworking character? Let me go hop on them and see what they have. I guess that's a bad example, because with leatherworking you just have it, right? But anyways, which one's my mining character, right? Like where's their ore? Let me check this, right? And then you go and mail it to the character that you need. And really though, is that actually like beneficial gameplay in any category, like in any way, right? I don't think so. I don't even think it makes the game feel like bigger, right? Because sometimes some things are done just because it makes the game feel bigger. It is an MMO after all, right? But I think with materials, it might just be one of those things where it's like, nah, this can just be shared. This can just be shared across characters. I don't think it matters. I wonder that about gold sometimes too. But maybe that's like more
the
questionable.
Warband gold you can share pretty easily.
Yeah.
I love that they're doing the account-wide currencies and moving more towards that. That is reminiscent of how Guild Wars does currencies as well.
Yeah, it feels a lot better.
And that is just game-changing.
All right, we got another question from Razek. And here we go. Can you believe it's already time again for my weekly question for the pod? Well, buckle up, because this one's another hypothetical. If you pick this question, you might want to put some thought into it before recording. All right, Ori, I'm letting you answer this one first. I don't even know what the question is. Imagine Blizzard comes to you and says, Swaggy, Chicken, Oreo, we absolutely love the podcast. Love it. All caps. Hands down our favorite. Potty C, the bench, NAFAM. All those elitist pros do is complain about us and our hard work. A little note from Swag here. I actually love those podcasts. They're great podcasts. All right, anyways, the Warband is where it's really at. Even though you guys did kind of steal that name from our favorite feature of the current expansion, But that's a whole other thing that Legal will be reaching out to you about later. No, we're here to ask you about something else. We've decided that for Season 4, instead of revisiting all of the War Within dungeons for a farewell tour, we want our favorite podcasters to pick the dungeon pool. It can be literally any dungeon from any expansion, all the way back to vanilla. If it hasn't been a Mythic dungeon before, we'll even update with fun creative mechanics. What are the 8 dungeons you're picking? I don't know if we have time to go through all 8, so maybe we'll just kind of do 2. We'll do 2 each. That'll put us at 6 dungeons, and then the last 2 can just be whatever dungeons win the vote for the returning War Within. Also, I just want to note real quick, yes, we did steal the name of Warbands because, okay, listeners, you want to know the lore behind our name? Chick and I were working so hard to make a name for the podcast. We were trying everything, dude. We were even opening up like Chat GPT and like Grok and stuff and just like slamming in there, like, give me a list of 800 names for a WoW podcast. And what ultimately inspired me a little bit was before the Bench and the Pod EC, there was another podcast called Titan Forged. And they always joked on the podcast about how they made their name based upon a feature in WoW that like immediately went extinct after the podcast launched. Like, podcast launched and then that feature went away. and so, but as I was thinking, that kind of inspired me because I was like, well, what are things in WoW that people love? Or like, what are features that are like well known within WoW that are good? And then I thought the Warband, and I was like, oh, but that could go away. But then, as I thought more about it, I'm like, no, even this conversation right now, I think Warband as a term is probably here to stay long term for WoW. And so I like it. That's where the name comes from. So if anybody's wondering, yes, we did steal it based upon WoW. But we needed something that people could look up and be like, that makes sense. That podcast is about World of Warcraft. And maybe not classic WoW. Maybe, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll have a classic WoW guest on who can talk to. Anyways, 8 dungeons. Maybe. Speaking of classic WoW, number 1 for me, and then I need time to think about number 2 because I don't know yet. But number 1 for me is Shadowfang Keep. I want that to be an M+ so bad.
Oh, bring it back to like Valentine's Day. I like it.
Interesting.
Yeah, but if I could have like OG Shadowfang, I'd be in heaven.
You know, I have to say which one next because I have a number of friends that if I really had this responsibility, they would kill me if I didn't put this dungeon in as one of my picks. And it would be Moth Souls. You're welcome, everybody.
Wait. Which one did you say? Did I hear that right?
Maw of Souls. It was the...
Yes, I hate... No.
The infamous 13-minute dungeon that you could run. You could run it in about 10 minutes, so people loved it as a Mythic Plus for how short it was.
Yeah, but also,
my Mythic friends would like that back.
Yeah, but those were like the most brutal like dungeon bosses of all time.
The last boss was had a lot of trash that feared you before the last, but it was all pretty like manageable. Yeah.
No, but that first boss, I just always remember that first boss being like, even in Time Walking when that dungeon pops up, groups struggle with it. Yeah. The guy who
mechanics of that.
Yeah, he just like you have to like it's very positional, but the game doesn't show you where you're supposed to position. Yeah, and then you just like get feared and died. Feared and died.
I don't even remember a fear on that fight.
I think I might be blanking a little bit on the mechanics, but all I remember is like that fight just like wrecking everybody. But otherwise though, like hear me out. Listen, okay, hear me out. Oh gosh, what was the raid we just had last season? The bonus raid for the anniversary.
The bonus raid.
Blackrock Depths.
Hear me out. Next season, or season 4, Maw of Souls, 15-minute timer, Maw of Souls, and then 3-hour timer Blackrock Depths.
Oh my gosh.
Just to counteract how your time spent.
Just counteract. You want title, you gotta earn it.
Oh my gosh.
Might as well bring back a cathedral at that rate.
True. Oof. You know what dungeon I did like? The dungeon that was tied to Maw of Souls. It might have been right before Maw of Souls, where you're going through the quarry. You know what I'm talking about? It was back in Wrath.
No.
It came out the same time Maw of Souls came out. Am I thinking?
Maw of Souls was from Legion.
Oh, I'm not thinking Maw of Souls. What am I? Oh, that's why I got the boss mechanics wrong. Oh gosh. Well,
Yeah,
remember
Maw of Souls was the.
You're right.
One
You're
with
right. You're right.
Hell yeah.
I'm thinking of something similar though. Not similar.
You're thinking like Forge of Souls.
Forge of
maybe?
Souls. Yes.
Yeah.
Dude. Okay.
That one was a brutal place.
Dude.
That was a hard place to be.
Dude, it was 2 bosses, and it was the hardest 2 freaking bosses of all time.
They had a ton of trash that would reflect your damage as well, and your DPS would kill themselves on it.
Okay,
and
see,
then be
that's
like,
what
why didn't you heal me?
Yeah, see, that's what I thought. When you said that, that's what I thought. But also when you said it was like a short dungeon, I was like, yeah, it is a short dungeon. It's just like 2 bosses. And
You know, I say I would bring that back too.
maybe new boss mechanics, though.
All
but-
Souls dungeons, Maw of Souls and Forge of Souls for
Maw of
me.
Souls and Forge of Souls. Didn't Forge of Souls like return in
The pre-patch event.
Jailer or something?
Yeah, it was like a pre-patch event for I don't remember what pre-patch it was.
Yeah, because
but-
I think the Jailer bonus phase or something showed the like engines from Maw of Souls, as
and
in
you
like
could get the Papa's new bag.
yeah. I think there's like a lore connection that like the Jailer was using the Forge of Souls as like his engine for powering something. I don't remember. It was like a whole thing. But what was the dungeon that was tied to Forge of Souls? I think you did it right
Also
afterward.
Reflection.
Halls of no, Halls of Reflection was the last one, right? What was the one that was? I don't remember. Whichever one had the quarry in it.
Quarry. Are you talking about from last expansion?
From Wrath. It was a part of the. There's like the 3-pack of dungeons that they had, and so you had Halls of Reflection.
Pit of Sauron. Pit of Sauron unlocked Halls of Reflection, which unlocked Forge of Souls.
Okay.
I believe.
It was the first. Yeah, Pit of Sauron's the one I'm thinking of.
That
I
one's
would-
a good one. That's
I'd
the
bring that
outside
back.
version.
Yeah, I'd bring that back as an M+. I'd bring that back. That and Shadowfang Keep are probably some of my... I think I just have, like, great memories of just running those 2 dungeons a ton.
Yeah, they were very thematic. Wrath, like, because nothing had ever come out like it before, they were
Mhm.
able to introduce mechanics that were just so new and fun.
Yeah. Good times. Good times.
Mhm.
I will give Blizzard credit, though. This season, especially this expansion, it feels like there's, like, a lot of new mechanic stuff. Maybe even some of it's just visuals are being different. But even just visuals doing different mechanics feel a lot better and more fun.
And Halls of Reflection had that whole, hallway where the Lich King would chase you
Dude,
down.
it
It
was
was
terrifying.
legitimately scary.
Yeah, and you just knew if he caught you, you're dead. You're dead.
Uh-huh. You get trapped behind the ice walls while he was encroaching on you. There's some anxiety there.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Chicken. Oreo's got the 2 15-minute timer dungeons. I've
Yep.
got Shadowfang and Sauron. What you got? What are your 2 that you're bringing to our dungeon pool?
Dude, this is like sad because I feel like you guys chose like really
chose
old
this.
dungeons.
Dude, I can't
and
even remember
I'm
the
like,
name of dungeons. Don't feel
bro,
bad.
I might be able to
Yeah.
guess them.
I'm like choosing like the most recent because I've not played near as long. But I was a huge fan of. Oh my goodness. It would have been Tazavesh, not Streets, but the
Gambit.
second one. Was it Gambit?
Well, yeah. Well, no,
Was it the
Gambit
first
was the
half or the
first
second
one.
half?
Streets was the second one.
Oh, it was? I thought it was Market.
Are you talking about Murlocs or no Murlocs?
Well, Market
Yeah.
was definitely one of them, I think, yeah.
It was Murlocs, yeah, Murlocs.
Yeah, then it's Gambit. That was
Whichever-
Gambit.
Okay. And then what was the second one?
Streets.
Are you sure?
Yeah, the one with all the market stuff in the stores and things and in the mailbox, the mailroom.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually don't remember how they
Yeah, that
split
was
them by title.
Upper.
Yeah, that was Streets.
Yeah, and the lower with the dragon.
Was Gambit. Yep.
Yeah. So Gambit is the one I'm talking about. That one I think is just such a cool dungeon.
Dude,
With the
Tazavesh
Streets
is a
of
Murlocs.
vibe.
Wonder. I had to look it up because I was curious. It was Streets of Wonder and Soleil's Gambit.
Oh, it is Gambit. Oh my goodness. That's why you're a genius.
I know some things. I
Oh, my
didn't know the
goodness.
dungeon names earlier though, so
Yeah,
Straight up.
it's that one, and I'd probably bring back Algathar. I don't know what it was about
Dude, you
Algathar.
loved
That was such a
Alcathar.
good dungeon, dude. That's such a good dungeon. Like, it's kind of hard to explain, but as an
I do like that one.
unholy, the tree boss was just like chef's kiss. Like, just being able to have all those ads and just epidemic them all and not have any drop off and like parsing like ridiculous numbers was like, ugh.
Yeah,
That's
here's
true.
something funny about Algathar.
What's that?
You know how you can see like the other kind of buildings and schools kind of
Yeah.
out in the distance when you're in that dungeon. I used to run with a very gullible tank, and I still run with him. That season, I used to about every time we went to Algathar, I would tell him like, "Did you know there's like a route down here where you can jump on the top of that building down there, and you can like go around the side and stuff, and you go into the building." And then I would just gaslight him into jumping off.
No.
Oh, dang.
Poor guy.
I think I did it about 3 or 4 times before he just stopped listening to me.
Oh my
Every time
gosh.
we were there.
Oh my god. The
That's
fact they got
funny.
him more than once with it is like
I know, fool him 3
Peak.
times. That's on him.
that's peak right there. That is peak. That's not a bad pick though. I'm actually surprised we didn't get streets this season in the Tazavish streets. Only because it has like
Yeah.
that big like cartel kind of theming to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I could have seen it relate with like the current, but I don't mind. I hope we get it again though. I do love both Tazavesh's. I think were brilliant dungeons.
Oh yeah, they were both pretty
Very
good.
well designed. They're beautiful zones too. It makes me a little sad that was supposed to be like our capital instead of Orebos, and we ended up for whatever reason
Dude,
not
Orbos
getting it because it is
boring.
just such a cool zone.
Orbos was so boring.
It was just a little bit boring. You know, I would have much rather been in Tazavish.
Dude, sometimes I look back on like the Mogs, and some of the zones had sick Mogs in Shadowlands, but then like anything that was Ouroboros themed was just the most like
A
bland
little
armor.
samey.
Yeah.
No, samey.
All right, we got 2 more questions we gotta get through. So, next question. Oh, I didn't copy names in these because I'm a terrible friend and podcast host, but this one is coming in from Rasta. He's asking, what do you think the future looks like for Aug Evokers? It seems likely it will be just another DPS eventually, but what if they turn it into a tank spec? What do you think that would look like? Any hot takes on that? I think Rasta wants more hot takes because last week we recorded and I was very sleep deprived and I was just ranting about everything. So I have my filters back up today, which is nice. But I feel like they're going to keep trying with AUG. I think they really want the idea of a support role to work well. I think the way the game's set up right now, I don't know if it can.
No, I can't.
In the way the game's set
There's
up.
no way.
Very hard.
And I mean it in a way where like the fact that there's only one, right? The fact that there's only one support, which means that it has to be a DPS technically, and play this like pseudo, like I'm a DPS, but I'm kind of not a DPS thing. And ultimately, I think if AUG Evoker is going to work, they need to add in like 3 or 4 other similar support specs into the game.
Yeah, but I mean, even if they do that, I don't think it would fix it.
No,
because then one of those is just going to become meta, and then it's just going to be the same thing that AUG was, right?
Yeah.
I think if they truly want a support role, they're going to have to make content that requires a support role. They're going to have to change the I don't want to say the culture of the game. They're going to have to change some aesthetic of the game to include a support role, because
that's what I was trying to say.
I mean, they just can't do that again. I mean, it was basically AUG is required in M+. Then it was like, oh, AUG is, good in mid-tier M+, and required in hard M+. Then it was, hey, AUG is good in hard M+, and required in hardest M+. Then it's like, hey, AUG is good in hardest M+. Now it's like AUG is trash. So it's like, and we went through that for what? It's been almost a year now. Probably over a year.
Very hard to balance.
Exactly. If they want a support role in the game, they almost have to make gameplay that involves that role. It's just not going to work. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you would ultimately need to go, we're going for 6-man groups. for dungeons, right? And one of those roles is support. I don't know. That to me is the only way it will long term really truly work without just being a creative DPS, right? Like, otherwise, what they have to do is they have to say, you know what, AUG DPSs by enhancing the DPS around them, and not focus on all that other utility, right? Defensives and health and healing and stuff like that, because that can become way too powerful. But I'm also not saying I want them to necessarily add another role into the game, right? We're already having an issue with like tank and healer shortages for dungeons, right? Like, I'd rather see that corrected than adding in another like specialty role.
Yeah. In terms of like mythic grade setting, AUG, like, our AUG players have always been hard to, motivate them to stay AUG because they're taking up a DPS slot, and the people that, sign up for that don't realize how much of a support role AUG ended up being. Like, you have to have healer frames, you have to track cooldowns, you have to monitor other players in ways that they were not at all used to or wanted to, and then hate how their DPS parses depended on other DPS parses. And like, it ended up being very demotivating for them as DPS players and feel not rewarding. So like, when AUG was meta, they hated it, and we're very happy to not play it if given the chance. But my support player who I played AUG, and she's a healer now, totally different experience. So like, maybe they should consider leaning into the more support role for AUG, because someone who came from like a healer mentality was able to do a lot of enabling and enjoyed the gameplay of it a lot more than the DPS players that I knew. But that could just be my experience as well.
I haven't played AUG. I have heard, though, it sounds like it's in line with what you're saying, Dungeon AUG is way different than Raid AUG in just terms of like complexity, even of how it's played, right? How much you have to track, how much you have to keep in front of you. And I do wonder, right? Like, ultimately, like, I think if it's going to live, it needs to be something. As far as tank spec, I don't think you'll ever see and people have brought up back, we don't have to linger on this one because we're running out of time. I don't think you'll ever see an AUG tank, or even just an evoker tank, because they're a mid-range class by design, and so that starts to make it hard for a tank to like kind of keep things stacked, unless you're working off of having like some sort of totem that's holding aggro for you or something. All right, last question coming from Maxi. And they say, if there was ever an M+ system for raids, how do you think it would work? So that's a great question. I'm going to pass it to our raid expert here, Oreo, to let us know if it could work and how it works.
A system for raids, as in like ranking up raid difficulties?
Yep.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. I've never actually even thought about it, because mythic raiding in the setting it is now it's been so like one difficulty. The only thing that kind of it reminds me of that was actually season 4 of, was it Shadowlands with Sepulcher, where they had affixes to raids during their final season, and that was like, it was a hit or miss for people. I personally really liked it. It was pretty fun because all of the affixes were kiss curse, so they gave you, and at the expense of like risk, and like my DPS players and stuff loved popping off with them, and that was kind of fun. It added kind of some dimension to the fight with affixes, and that's something they haven't really revisited since that what was it called, Timeless or like Awakened season? I don't remember.
No, they did Awakened in Dragonflight.
Awakened was Dragonflight. I don't remember what it was in Shadowlands.
Something branded, but I know what you're talking about. And they had the affixes. I don't think we noticed them too crazy much, because in the difficulty we were playing, it just wasn't like the biggest deal. But my kind of my question too, though, is the difference between M+ and rating. Well, one, M+ is timed, right? It's timed content, which I think plays a big part into that. But I would say you don't really want timed raids, because then it changes the experience. But also, I think the timer on M+ is what has helped make dungeons and raiding a separate experience. For the longest time, dungeons were just your stepping stone into raiding, right? Like dungeons were never the final destination. They were just like how you got into raiding. It's like, oh, you want to raid? Well, go get some gear from dungeons, and then you'll be able to go do raids and get gear from that. And now it's kind of like, oh, you don't want to raid, you just want to do dungeons? Great. That is perfect endgame content. Oh, you don't really care for M+ too much, you want to do raid? Awesome. Great. That's also endgame content. And I think they would have to completely overhaul how raids work, because right now with dungeons, right, like an M0 going to an M2 and working up, M0s aren't that hard, right? They're like relatively like pretty simple, right? Like a mythic dungeon's pretty easy. The difficulty comes once you start getting way up there, right? So you couldn't take the current raid structure of a mythic and be like, okay, you completed mythic raid, now you go to mythic +2, right? Because that difficulty jump would be crazy. Warrior, I think your guild works most of the season, right? Working towards the completion of that raid, depending on the difficulty of that season. All of a sudden now it's like, oh, well, you finished that. Now to the next bracket. It almost takes away, I think, from the thrill of like getting that cutting edge of completing that raid. So they would have to they have to change how they do difficulty for raids and probably get rid of the current system. Yeah.
Because like timeline for us would be, prog. You hit the last boss, and then your post-prog, which means reclear, and we can bring like people who pay gold through to get like the mount at the last boss, and we fund a lot of our guild bank, like all the cauldrons that we have made that tier and feasts and stuff. That's how we fund our guild bank. And if they change the scaling, kind of uncap it to where we're always in prog mode, that would definitely be a little draining.
Yeah, doesn't give your team a chance to rest either.
No.
Yeah, I think, right, I actually, though, the reason why I like this question so much is I think it helps demonstrate, though, how M+ has helped make dungeon. I think M+ has made dungeons a more viable system long term. And so I think it helps highlight that. It helps highlight why now dungeons and raid are so different, which is fun. It's fun to think about. But on top of that, you mentioned something, and so I want to ask one last question before we wrap up the podcast. We're so over time, so thank you so much for giving us so much time for the podcast this episode. Did you see that Echo had been talking about selling Race to World Second this tier?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, what were your like initial thoughts, like gut reaction?
I have like a lot of kind of gut reactions on them as a team in terms of like raid environment and toxicity and whatnot. But I mean, did they end up doing that? I don't know. I don't think they did.
I don't think they did. I think they had discussed it, but they didn't do it.
That's totally their prerogative, like they spend so much money on the Race to World First with money to WoW tokens to spending gold on BOEs and whatnot, that they like have to spend so much of the tier remaking that money that they spent in gold. So they got to do what they got to do, I guess, for getting that back.
Well, I'm in agreement with that, because I don't know. I feel like when it first came out, I heard a lot of players who are kind of in the same range that I'm in that were just like, oh, that's kind of lame. Don't be selling that. That's kind of a very prestigious thing. How could you do that? But I had to stop and think about it in like the human element, right? And not just the competitive element, and be like, okay, but how much time are these guys putting in just to raise the funds to do this race? And if bringing one player along would cut that in half, I couldn't blame them, right? Like, think about how much more time that is for them to spend with their families, how much more time that is for them to like rest and like mentally recover after the Race to World First. So in hindsight, like honestly, dude, if I found out that Liquid, like if I found out that every guild was bringing somebody for Race to World First, I'd be like, okay, whatever. Like, cool. Like, whatever you gotta do to like, you're entertaining me. Whatever you have to do to make this sustainable, that's fine. That's okay with me. I'm happy with it. So I have no big complaints. But Oreo, thank you so much for hanging out on the podcast today, letting us ask you a bunch of questions. I loved your perspective on things and your answers to a lot of these questions that were coming through. If our listeners enjoyed it just as much as I did, and they want to find more, they want to hear more from you, you stream on Twitch, right? We'll put a link down in the description as well. Mothravita on Twitch. Anywhere else that they can look for you as well, like Twitter or any other platforms you use?
I'm mostly on Twitch. I do have an Instagram as well for the Mothravita. But thank you so much for having me on. It was been a really fun discussion.
Oh, thank you. This was great. And just so you know, I don't make the rules. I just have to follow them. Technically, it is a healer mechanic to say goodbye to end the podcast. So listen, Chicken and I, we're not healers. We're not healers. That's a healer mechanic. So if you want to say goodbye to everybody, so I can hit this end recording button.
I'd be happy to. Well, goodbye, everybody. Thanks for listening.